The idea of travel and journey is always something that is considered in a romantic light in terms of the adventure and the fun things that can be discovered. Is always something fresh. But sometimes in life we are roaming. And if you ask Photay, this idea of roaming is done in an instrumental sense as well as a sort of physical, visual sense where we sort of see the same things. If you've ever taken a walk through a forest or taken a walk through the same sort of parts of the places that you live, you'll notice the same sounds that sort of emboss the world, as well as the same areas, the same things that you see, the trees, that same car that seems to always come by at a certain time. And a saying that is old as time is sort of all of those who wander are not always lost. You know, that idea that there are some people who are not to be derided for this because, in a way, wandering helps you discover who you are. And what I really love about this Photay song is that instead of it having a moment where it sort of gets more energy or becomes exponentially more exciting, it really hones in on the idea of roaming via keeping the song sort of following this set loop, this set path, and it doesn't really deviate from this path. And so instrumentally you hear sort of this focused twang of some synths, and what it does instead is offer maybe brief little extras here or there to accent the entire song, but it never really strays too far from this initial path of just roaming. And so you sort of become more and more hypnotized, engaged by it. You're sort of getting sucked into this sort of focused world where there's these sort of little twinkles of different things, of various things that are heard, but there's never a sheer focus on something new. And it just makes me think of roaming through like a forest, and you see these same trees, but you see a different bird on this tree. You're seeing the stars at night flying by. It really makes this song interesting in terms of how it really shapes its entire structure around that one word. And as the loop continues, like I said, there's pieces of synth that show up that are a little bit more light, but it never gets a beat or anything like that. It just remains sort of in this metronome of a state. And as it moves through that metronome, it continues on, and it seems like it's droning at a point, but it all sort of eventually does sort of collapse a little bit. There is a moment where it does shift, and the initial melody that was the sort of backbone and anchor transitions into sort of what sounds like the inverse. It sounds lighter, and it's not that this song has a depressing tone. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's just more of a focused drone type thing where it's not despairing. It's just more of a light journey, and there's not necessarily ever hope or relief with these moments where we roam in our own head. Sometimes you just zone out, and it doesn't mean you're mellowed out. It just means that you are kind of traveling through this space. And in this audio space specifically, the only moment where it shifts is sort of towards the end, and it becomes, like I said, an inverse of itself, where it feels like there is almost like a mirror there's a mirror, and this is the reflection of that initial melody. And it's really it's an interesting song. Like, I wouldn't say it's fun. You know, you don't sit down and I'm so hyped to just zone out and focus and be like meditative, but I'm also intrigued, and I really enjoy the way that this audio is shaped around this narrative of roaming, and that idea of kind of walking around the same exact area over and over again. It's not always clear what people are looking for when they're roaming, Sometimes it's just nice to escape the monotony or the chaos of certain demands. And in order to escape that, sometimes it's just good to get out in nature, even though right now it's probably not a good idea. And sometimes it's just nice to see certain things be uninhibited by the same structure and rules that can sometimes be increasingly demanding or increasingly exhausting. And with these things, sometimes we just have to take a step back. And for some people, roaming is trying to find something that helps give them meaning, because all people want to have a reason, want to have meaning. And when you are devoid of meaning, it makes it very difficult. And roaming helps achieve that, because at the very least, you're sort of working towards that goal. So the idea of roaming and the way that it's done here, I think, are pretty engaging, pretty enthralling. I was just kind of, I felt myself sort of become more and more introspective. Like, so you start roaming in your head when you're listening to this. And I think I really love instrumental tracks that seek to try and make a narrative with just instruments alone. And I'm always impressed. And when it comes to Photay stuff, like I said, I've really come to enjoy his stuff a lot. And I'm really, I'd say, as far as what this song is trying to achieve, if this is what it is trying to achieve, and it's not just my thoughts on it, then it did a really good job of that. It basically took the idea of roaming and put it in the sound, and I'm cool with it. I think as far as like playlists, it could probably sneak onto a chill playlist, but it might just drone on, because I think it goes for like 2-3 minutes before it hits that transition point, hits that like bridge. Ultimately, it's an interesting song. I am intrigued. I like Photay stuff, and I think this was pretty neat. Pretty neat. Roaming. Not all who wander are lost. Photay. Well, this guy says, I don't know if GPSs were the greatest invention ever. I'm just saying, sliced bread, man. Sliced bread is up there. I know it's controversial. I'm sorry. I had to say it.